the Everything.After podcast. I'm Rob, and I'm very pumped to have in the studio with me Johnny Radelat, rock star drummer who has wielded the sticks as part of the Gary Clark Jr. band for Robert Plant and Emily Wolfe, and since about 2024 has been touring and playing with the band live. Johnny, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Johnny, of course, I saw you perform recently, very recently, with Live on a stop in Northeast Ohio. I'm a huge fan of the band, and I've seen Live in concert probably half a dozen times since the mid-'90s. The band's been through some shakeups, but as I told you after the show, I really think there was a new energy and life in that performance, and you play a big part in that, man.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just happy to be sitting behind the drums on that one. I've been a fan since Mental Jewelry came out. When I
Yeah.
started playing drums in the early 90s, they were mine and all my buddies were drummers at the time in junior high and high school. And they were our little secret kind of for that first album. The second album, the band blew up and everybody found out about them. But they were like the early 90s band that we all fell in love with. And yeah, I would have never imagined I'd be in the band 30 years later. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, Mental Jewelry is a great album, and then
Yeah.
Bird Copper's the one that really took off and hit the stratosphere. Some great stuff on that. You guys played a lot of the great hits, a lot of the good stuff in that set at the MGM here in Northeast Ohio. Tell me a little bit about that. I guess we could maybe start at the beginning though. Like, how did you get into drumming? Did you always, from an early age, think you'd be a drummer in a rock band?
No, I think if I ever had those kind of visions or dreams, they were being a lead singer, I suppose.
Yeah,
But I never like it, and I always thought of it as something over here, and life is over here, right?
yeah,
Watching MTV videos, I remember setting up those. Remember back in the day, you had these plastic or metal lunch boxes
yeah. Oh
with
yeah.
like Marvel characters on
Oh
them,
yeah.
or I would set up I had a couple of plastic ones and a couple of metal ones, and I would set them up with pencils and like while I'm watching MTV play, set them up on the bed, sit on a chair, and like pretend like I was drumming. So I guess that was kind of the first thing. And then when I got to a point in about eighth or ninth grade where at school and at home, my parents are telling me you got to get into something besides getting home from school and going outside and skateboarding,
Yeah.
which I was fine with just doing that. But when they gave me, they're like, one thing, you just got to pick one thing. I was like, the next day I went into school and walked by the band room and I remember asking somebody who was, it wasn't the band teacher, but it was somebody who was cleaning the room or something. I was like, what do you got to do to get into the band? And they were like, go to this office and talk to that teacher. And he's like, yeah, we'll start you at drums. I really wanted to play saxophone or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think they gave me a saxophone, a fresh reed, and I tried to blow a note, and it was like, like everybody does on a saxophone first time. But like I had no embouchure for it, which is what they call what you
Right.
do with your mouth there to get a sound out of the thing.
Right.
So yeah, I ended up doing percussions and starting out. It was a kick in the ass kind of because instead of like sitting on a drum set, they gave me a practice pad and a pair of sticks and a book with a bunch of notes on it. And I'm like, this isn't drumming. This isn't, drumming. But yeah, I think I learned it the right way where I started with just rudiments for almost a year and a half before my parents finally were like, okay, we're going to get you a little used drum set. Yeah.
Very
Uh,
cool. We're all lucky that that janitor at your school steered you to the right place to sign
yeah.
up for the band that time. I have to make a really corny joke real quick because I have to say, like, with your last name, people thought it was inevitable that you'd be a drummer. Has
Yeah.
anybody ever added an extra tat at the end and said Radelat tat?
Yeah. That Radelat Tat Tat. It was my nickname through a
Yeah,
lot of growing up. Yeah.
Radelat
Uh,
tat tat. Yeah.
Not because of drumming. That was just something that came out of people's mouths. Radelat Tat Tat. And like all currently, whenever I meet a drummer and they're like, "What's your name?" and they're like, "Oh, that sounds like one of the rudiments, like a flam, a paradiddle, a flamadiddle, a rattlelat."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what was the first band you were in?
I did a couple things in high school, mostly punk rock and metal, which when I started playing music, at that age, just it was all about energy and, heavy metal and punk rock spoke to me.
Yeah.
and was the loudest and the fastest and the most explosive, and did a couple of things, played in a couple bands that played, like talent contest and a couple of house parties here and there.
Yeah.
And then I actually stopped playing for a few years. And in college, I joined up with a buddy who was in marching band in high school. And he's like, "Oh, I'm playing bass. I'm playing bass guitar now. I'm starting a reggae band." And he knew at the time that I hadn't been playing drums for a few years, but he's like, "I know you're a fan of reggae music." At the time, I was a big fan of these hip hop, a lot of 70s reggae music and stuff like that. And I'm like, "I've never thought about playing that stuff on drums. It's so different. It's really
Hmm.
backwards to the way drumming is in rock drumming and everything Western. And I gave it a shot, and we actually did well in college. We were like it was a three-piece reggae band. We did a lot of roots stuff, but some of the stuff we did crossed over into like the Police and that kind of reggae rock fusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and we actually did all right. And it was the first time in my life where I was like, "Oh shit, we made $500 tonight between three people." That was the first time I thought like, "Oh, maybe there's something here. Maybe this actually will make me a little bit of money and help me," not to be crude, but at the time growing up, people join rock bands to meet chicks or whatever. And at that time, that whole era was already dead. And actually being in a band like made me a nerd at the time. So it wasn't helping in that sense.
Marching
And
band
that
didn't
was
do
a
that for you?
what's that marching band? No, not at all. And playing in Slayer cover bands didn't do that for me. But yeah, that was the first time I was like, "Oh, this gives me a little bit of social leverage and a little bit of money." And it wasn't, the money wasn't like anything like that, but it was like the first time where like somebody handed me some money and was like, "This is for what you did tonight," which was such a foreign. I never, like I said, that whole idea of being a professional musician and a touring in with a rock band and all that was over here, and playing music was this reality over here.
Yeah.
And that was the first time with those things kind of like crossed, and
Oh, that's, yeah. What a
something
moment.
lit up in my head. And luckily I was almost done with college at the time, and it gave me a chance to step away from the drums, from the marching band world where I started playing, where it was very technique, very very like straight line of like music is this like technique, and you play it exactly this way. And when I started playing again after not playing for a couple years, I started listening to like jazz and soul music and you know reggae, which was already kind of there for me. What I call now like roots music, the
Yeah.
the root the roots of all the modern genres. And it made me approach music from a more musical standpoint, rather than marching band kind of pushes you into this mentality of mechanical kind of, you know what I mean? It's a little bit gymnastics, a little
Yeah.
bit music, and it started making me think about like, "Oh, it's okay to just play boom boom if there's cool music going on over it and it's
Right.
musical."
Right. Yeah.
So drumming's not about drumming is about music. And that kind of set me in a direction that I wasn't in before. It's also a youth thing. Like I said before, when you're young, you think like the cool stuff is the fast and loud stuff, right? Musicality, you don't really, doesn't really it seeps in on a subconscious level, but on a conscious level, you don't really get that till you're I feel like till you're into your 20s. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so some people even past that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's super important. I can imagine that shift where you realize, like, you know, what you're doing is, additive. Like it's something, like you're part of something. Like you feel
Yeah.
like you're part of something that's bigger than yourself. Like, and you're, a huge part of it. Obviously, I mean, you're driving the beat, you're driving the whole rhythm section for this song, and just feeling that. I guess comes with a lot of pressure, probably, but it also is a little bit freeing in a way, I would think.
Yeah, and it also like it also offers something that I'm sad that it took me that long to really see what making music with other people was about.
Yeah.
And it took the context of taking it out of the mechanical, the educational part of music sometimes sucks away from the soul of music,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Not to say that you don't need a tool bag to work. Everybody needs their tools, and the way you get those tools is through all the educational stuff and the doing your fundamentals and doing your paradiddles and rudiments, and then you take those tools and those tools get into your hands subconsciously, and then you could just emote, and those tools come out, and you're not consciously thinking about, oh, I'm doing a double stroke roll here, or you're able to paint with these things.
Right.
But you got to like gather your palette first, which is the educational part. And then, but I'm glad at that point, at least I caught on to the fact that like, wow. And I remember the first time I learned how to sing a harmony with somebody and what that did to my brain, like where it just like zing, like you get this, like when you hit a harmony with somebody and you're like, oh shit, that
Yeah.
like tickled me in a funny place that I haven't felt before. Like it's this unity, Yeah, if I was a music instructor, I would, before kids learn any kind of technicality on whatever instrument they're on, I would show them that simple thing of like, hey, you sing this note and you sing this note, and keep taking deep breaths and doing it in a circular kind of way. And
Yeah.
at some point, you're going to hit that resonance and it's going to blow your mind. And you're going to be like, oh, this is what we're all trying to tap into. Even in listening to music, I feel like that like thing of a vibration that's beyond, bodies and minds,
Right, man.
not
Yeah.
to get too, not to get too heavy. You got to
No.
cut me off when I start going that.
I love it, man. I love hearing about that stuff. That's awesome. No, it makes me wonder, like, because obviously, like, you learn a song as a drummer, like you learn like any musician, you learn a song, you know where this part comes in and that part comes in, and but
Hmm.
sitting down at a kit, like, and doing it live in a performance, do you feel like it's always a little bit different each night? Because you're
Yeah.
playing what you feel, right?
For sure. And that part is a little like causes a little bit of anxiety because you're always like, even if you go for it the same way, there's always going to be a difference. There are certain players, and I notice like players I love, there are certain players that play in a way that's like very consistent, right?
Yeah.
And then there's players that aren't consistent at all. And there's good and bad to both things, right? They're both like art, they're both different parts of the art form that are
Yeah.
an art form in themselves. I, with age, I'm learning to straddle the fence with
Yeah.
that
Balance.
and like be spontaneous, but also be like rooted in this like foundational. This is where we're going. This is, the
Yeah.
bullseye's right here, and we're headed that way, even if we're taking little zigzags here and there.
Yeah. You ever surprised yourself in a performance where you just kind of went one direction and you didn't sort of see yourself going that way? And
I I do, but usually it starts with a mistake. Usually it's a mishap that, most musicians, once you get to a level, you learn like, especially in an improvisational setting or a part of a song that's kind of open and building. If you do something, whether you mean to do it or not, whether you're going for something and it falls short, or you didn't mean to do something, you got tripped up, the best thing to do is to repeat it three times more. So you're doing a complete four or something, which,
mm,
all
yeah,
modern music is in fours. And if you do something four times, it sounds right, even though it's wrong.
yeah, man, if only it was like that in life too,
Yeah.
right? You
But
do
a lot
something
of,
wrong, just do it three more times and it's right.
right.
That'd be great. But you got to
But
react too to everyone else on stage too. So if someone else makes a mistake, you're helping to fill in too and to make that right as well. Like,
yeah, and
or if the singer goes
there's
in a different direction, you got to follow that, right?
yeah, and there's the mindset that there are no mistakes, although we all know a mistake when we've seen it. But yeah, like like, but what you said before, those moments of like, well, that was actually cool, usually come from like a hesitancy, or that's why like I'm a fan of in the studio, the first take is always my favorite one because there's a
Hmm.
hesitancy there, and there's like you're not laying into like changes and all these things. You're not planting your foot down when you walk. You're kind of tiptoeing through things. And
Yeah,
sometimes that makes you like wiggle and wobble in a cool way. So yeah, I feel like those moments happen when songs go divert or whatever,
yeah, right.
and when playing like forms, because I dabble in like playing. I'm not claiming to be a jazz drummer by any means. Drummers and jazz drummers are two different things.
Yeah,
And anybody that says otherwise, God bless them. But I think they're two separate things. Like a lot of jazz drummers can't sit down and play with a rock band, and 99.9% of rock drummers can't sit down. and play with a jazz band.
Yeah.
But I have a huge respect for the art form, and like I attempt to do jazz gigs here and there, and that, and that's all about that, like kind of riding the moment. But I think that mentality should be, even if you're playing in a band that's playing the song the same way every night, I feel like there should be some kind of mindset of that, even though you're going for the same moves every night.
Yeah.
Your mind should be always open to the fact, like, what if,
Johnny, you showed some range though, and the acts that you performed with. I mean, you've played with a lot of really sort of different, stylistically at least, musicians. Can you
hmm
talk a little bit about getting into that? I mean, your big was your big break with Gary Clark?
Yeah, that was kind of the first like big like band that really did something that I was in. I joined that band shortly after moving to Austin, Texas, and I moved
Uh-huh.
to Austin at a perfect time. Austin was just this was 2008,
Oh yeah.
late 2000s, and Austin was just becoming, it was always known as a music city, but it was just becoming a place that was not just a music city, but like an up and coming city where people were moving to from other cities. And yeah, I moved to Austin, started playing around town and joined that band. That band, speaking of what we were just talking about, that band operated, especially in the early days, because the first tour we went on, Gary had about 40 minutes of material, and we had about an hour's of a set to play.
Yeah. That's great.
That 40 minutes of material was really only like four or five songs. So we had to make those songs 9 minutes and then come up with something. And Gary chose really good covers or things to, and a lot of it came without talking about it. Like we wouldn't rehearse, that band wouldn't rehearse. That band was all just like Gary would play a riff, set up a tempo, and we would all kind of jump in.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that feeling your way through it. Um,
Improvisational. Yeah. A lot of
yeah.
yeah.
And that band definitely forced me, and just moving to Austin forced me to get into a mindset of, up until that point, I was a dude who was in one band, and I was a drummer for this band, and then I was a drummer for that band. I didn't consider myself a musician necessarily. I was the drummer in one band appropriately at whatever time. When I moved to Austin, I consciously was like, I'm gonna play in a six different bands at the same time, which also meant in Austin at the time learning how to play like Texas blues shuffles, which still not a huge fan of, but if you don't know that shit and you show up to a gig in Austin, especially if it's one of those gigs where you play three sets a night, if you can't do that stuff, you're not getting a gig again. But yeah, that kind of opened my mind to like, you don't have to just do one thing. Or yeah, I kind of just set out to, I want to be the dude that people want to call in, that this group of musicians doing different bands doing reggae, because Austin had a little bit of that going on, where there was a punk rock scene, there was a reggae scene, there was a jazz scene, there was a blues scene, there was a rock cover band scene, there was an indie rock scene. I kind of wanted to be the guy people called in every scene, not to be greedy about it, but it
Yeah.
was like one of those things where I was like, yeah, I want to kind of have my foot in the door in all of them. And in the long run, all that learning, all that stuff, and diving into each one of those things really helps.
Yeah. Like I said, that range really comes through. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about some of the other bands you got involved in then after Gary Clark.
Well, I did that for a good, kind of the other stuff came while I was doing that,
Oh yeah.
because
Hmm.
I got in that band and we started touring and he took off, and we were on the road almost about 200 of the 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Um,
Kind of adjustment was that?
and that it was great, man, to
Yeah.
be, as much work as it was. I was a little bit younger than I am now, so I had the energy to be on the road that much. And in the early years of touring with any band, it's not cushy touring. It's you're in the back of a van, you're sleeping 4 hours a night, you're eating whenever you can. Man, it was, when you're coming from doing local gigs to like being on the road doing what you set out to do, it's you don't think about any of the hardship or whatever. Sorry, what was the original question there?
Just adjusting to that, yeah, and just being
Oh
out
yeah.
there and
So, oh yeah, right. You asked me earlier how other gigs.
Oh, how it sort of,
Yeah, but the beauty in doing that and being out that much, by out I mean on the road that much and at festivals and in other cities on a night off, going out to see local bands and all that stuff, is I made a lot of good connections and saw, including meeting the guys in live at a festival in Germany. They had a keyboard player at the time. Well, this was actually Ed's solo project, Ed K, the lead singer from
yeah, Ed
Live.
Kowalczyk, yeah.
Ed Kowalczyk had a solo project at the
Hmm.
time when Live was kind of not operating, and the keyboard player in that band, Nick, he is from Austin, and I saw them on the lineup, and I was like, "Ooh, Nick is playing with Ed." I'm a huge fan of the band, and I walked over to the stage they were on. I think this was in Germany, and got to meet them and stuff. That was kind of, and then 8 years later, they ended up getting in touch with me for the drumming gig. Yeah, little things like that. I met another artist, Emily Wolf, who's a am- amazing guitar player from Austin, and she I still try to tour with her as much as I can around Live's schedule. But yeah, just meeting people like that, and kind of when I wasn't on the road with Gary, I would always like get a call and be like, "Hey, are you available for this gig?" And my theory for a long, long time, and even kind of still, is if you're not already booked, why say no?
Yeah. Yes mentality.
Um, unless you're going to end up coming out of pocket money wise. I understand there's financial
Hmm.
decisions to be made for your time or whatever. Even if it's not a paid gig, a lot of times my experience has been that like the stuff that pays the least has been the stuff that you don't see it in the moment, but 2 years down the line, somebody calls you and they're like, "Oh, you remember I met you? You were doing that gig with such and such." And I was like, in the back of my head, whenever that happens, I'm like, I knew I did the right thing by saying yes, you know?
It's like in I don't know what kind of movie guy you are, but like and Billy Madison at the end where Steve Buscemi shows up at the end and shoots the guy and and then Adam Sandler says, "Man, I'm glad I called that guy." It's like,
I forgot Steve Buscemi was in that.
oh
It's
man, but
funny
that's
because
cool.
I'm
I mean, you make like you said, it's about making an impression. It's about I mean, putting yourself out there sometimes. But like, you must have made a heck of a impression on Ed Kowalczyk if he called you 8 years after meeting you to join the band.
Well, I wasn't the only call. I knew I was they called, they had everybody in the band put some names in a hat,
Yeah,
and my name luckily ended up in there. And I was at a disadvantage, I think, because at the time I was on the road with Emily Wolf. We were out supporting Gaslight Anthem on a really long tour, which was a great band to be on the
yeah,
road with. I love that
yeah.
band. And that tour was getting ready to wrap, and they're asking for me to send in a video. They're like, "We have a tour coming up in 3 weeks. We need you to send in a video of you playing live songs." Well, I'll go back. The first question was, "Would you be interested? Are you familiar with the band Live?" Because this is the manager sent me some. My buddy Nick was like, "Hey, I put your name up for this thing," and I was like, "Yeah, do it, please. Awesome, thank you." And and then the manager hits me up and he's like, "Yeah, we have this stuff coming up in a couple of weeks. Will you send in a video of yourself playing live tunes from whatever home setup you have?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm on the road. I don't think I could use another band's sound check time to like, hold on a second, let me set up my recording device and phone while I audition for another band out here during sound check." So I was like, if you could wait 3 days, I'm literally like overnighting the night after tomorrow, overnighting home. And they're like, "We have that meeting that afternoon, that same day. So if you could, the second you walk in the house at 6 a.m., get it in by 9 a.m." And I'm like, damn. And
Wow, wow.
and I knew I thought I was at a disadvantage because in my head, like, you know how things are nowadays. I look at Instagram and I see younger younger than me drummers with five camera angle setups, and drums mic'd straight to studio soundboard.
Yeah,
And I'm still like, when I record like Instagram videos, it's like my phone on a tripod, and a giant PA that I'm blasting and trying to play over, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm never like I'm definitely I would be better off if it were an in-person thing and I could walk in the room and play with these guys. But so yeah, I got home that morning and was felt a little defeated, and luckily my wife was around and she's like, "You idiot, just fucking do it. Just sorry,
Yeah,
can I
yeah,
curse?
yeah.
Yeah."
You're like,
She's like, "You fucking idiot, just do it and send it in." And they've already seen you play, like they've looked at videos of you, they know what you're going to be like. They just want to make sure that you're the guy and the vibe is right, and like, it's not about. And she, drew to my attention things that I always talk about, which is like it's not about what you play, it's how you play it, and vibe, which is people is it's not a conscious thing, it's a subconscious thing. And some of my favorite drummers, I don't even know why they're my favorite drummers. It's just a vibe, right?
yeah,
And that always comes through no matter how shitty your gear is, right? So she actually sat there, set up the camera, and was like, just go, just play the song. Just
that's
go.
awesome. That's
Yeah, and they called me back an hour after I sent it in and were like, hey, everybody just talked about it and you want to join the band. It's
that's
awesome.
amazing,
Yeah.
man. I imagine part of that was like you said, like sometimes your first take is your best take, and just not. You don't have time to.
Yeah.
You don't have time to fuck it up. You just do it, and just like that's it. Just put it
I
all
think that's exactly what it is. It's like you don't have time, you don't have time for your brain to get in the way of what
right.
your body and energy is already set out to do, right?
Yeah,
And that's in all of life, right?
yeah, man, that's awesome. So what's it been like then being with the guys in live? And Ed Kolchik? I talked to him after a show after we did one of his solo shows one time, and seems like a real cool dude.
Yeah, yeah. He's and everybody says this about everybody they play with, like, oh, they're real down to earth and real humble person. He actually is. Sometimes I'll be still like, I think it was it that night? No, it was the night before that night. We were in Detroit, night before the show you went to in Cleveland area. We were in Detroit, and there was it was that Tigers game that went to 15 innings.
Yeah,
And we knew they were watching it at the bar next door from the venue. So Ed goes down there with me. And I'm like, cool. Every time he does this, I'm like, I can't believe this dude doesn't mind standing in a crowd. And everybody is tapping him on the shoulder. They're like, you're that guy. And he's just like super, not that he's just cool about it, but he's comfortable in it. You know what I mean? Which
yeah,
is a lot of people are cool about it and they say yes to the pictures and the
right.
signing stuff, but not everybody is like comfortable in it and like it doesn't like spike their energy one way or another,
Yeah, yeah. That takes a lot to get there.
It takes, I can't imagine it. I'm glad I'm a drummer most of the time because I'll see some of the interactions. I'll be like, I would be so wound up right now after those three little conversations that person just had.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so I would have to step away from it. And that's why when every band I've ever been in, when somebody asks, do you think, when speaking of the lead singer, the spearhead of the band, when they always ask the drummer, like, oh, you think if I give him this thing for my wife and blah blah blah, and they was not, and I'm always like, I manage your expectations because you never know how somebody's feeling. Like
yeah, sure.
I, but yeah, Ed seems to be right in the middle with it all. Like he's just happy that people give a shit. Like happy. He's one thing that I love because obviously I'm the new guy in the band. I want to play all the hits.
Yeah,
You know,
right,
I haven't been playing them for 30 years. I've been listening to them for 30 years, but I haven't playing them for 30 years.
right,
I want to play them all. So I'm so grateful that Ed's one of those dudes. He's like, I'm going to play the songs people want to hear. They came here to hear those songs. Why wouldn't you do that? And
right.
it seems to me like he's grateful that he gets it from a spectator's point. He's grateful that they give a shit that much.
Right.
Even if they only give a shit about the hits, he's grateful that they give a shit about the hits. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I thought that set mixed in had a good mix in it, like of the big hits
Of
off
new
the big
stuff and
records, but
yeah.
a little bit of new stuff too. Some of the more obscure songs off of some of the older albums as well, which I thought was great.
Yeah, we've been playing stuff that we were playing a couple songs over the last few months that I got to record on that I'm the drummer on. So it feels great for me
That's awesome. Yeah.
to be playing a couple songs in a set a set of music that's been around for 30 years without me, to be playing a couple songs that I helped make is amazing.
Yeah. That's amazing. The good stuff's good too, man. I like that. The radio song is great.
Oh yeah, awesome, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's probably going to come out here before just before the end of the year.
Leave the radio on. Is that what it's
Leave the
called?
radio on. Yeah.
A great song.
Yeah, and it's a departure. It's different because, when we were first recording it, I was like, oh, are people gonna get this? Because it doesn't sound like 90s rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Ed's such a Ed's such an amazing songwriter. You could strip all the others. Even when he sits down with just a guitar and he's strumming a hit like all Over You or I Alone
Right.
or
Yeah.
something, like you hear it and you're like, oh, this song stands on its own just with a guitar, and that's always a sign of a great songwriter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, his songs do something no matter what genre or semantics you put around it, or you
Hmm.
whatever you gift wrap it in, and they do something.
There's so much of Live's music too that I feel like is recognizable before the first hint of a lyric comes in. You just get it like right away.
Yeah.
Like at that show, Lakini's Juice, immediately everybody was into that.
Yeah,
That's
that
such a
riff.
great song.
Yeah. Yeah, we almost are forced to play that one kind of last a lot of time because it like the energy, like following up that song, we either have to like get off stage and come back on for a second or just end with it because
Yeah.
you can't, yeah, you can't play that one first and then,
No, no, that would be setting the bar really high right away because
yeah.
that's that's got such energy to it. It's so incredible. Yeah, for sure. What's your favorite live song to play?
It's hard to separate the nostalgia for me because I have a
Hmm.
history with it myself. It's hard to separate that from the like what I actually like playing, like what feels good on the drums. But like Pain Lies by the Riverside,
Yeah,
yeah, Pain Lies, a lot of the Mental Jewelry stuff. But like I said, that might just be nostalgia for me, right?
yeah. Pain Lives by the Riverside gets in my head just
Yeah,
randomly. Like I'll just be walking around and
yeah.
that'll just pop in my head. It's such a great
And
song.
and that one, honestly, I think I could take myself out of my position a little bit and say that honestly on drum, even if I had never heard that one up until recent years, that like maraca kind of, it's like a break beat,
Yeah,
which I'm all about those like 90s, like
right.
James Brown influence breakbeat things. I'm a
Hmm.
sucker for, so that one would probably have to be number one. And playing wise, as far as like intricacy and like being like mentally like on your toes, songs like Iris, you know that
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
which is weird arrangement, complex start and
Oh
stops,
yeah,
and huge energy spikes and come downs. And then at the end, there's this very like, I know one thing I love about live, there's a lot of what I call that new wave era of drumming, which is like what's the best way to describe it? It's a very like Smiths influence,
yeah,
Joy Division influence kind of thing. 16th notes on the high, Smiths, Joy Division, a lot
yeah,
of a lot of the Manchester like New Order, like that kind of like influence kind of thing, which seeped into rock and roll quite a bit in the early 90s, thanks to Morrissey and.
yeah, yeah, man. That's great. So
But yeah, those
what's have you had a real standout gig or performance since you've been on this road with live? Where's some
um
place you've played or a show that you've played that's just been like massive? Just
once again, it's all about your perspective and experience and what and a little bit of nostalgia and all those things. But like the one that kind of pops right into my head when you said that is on my like third or fourth gig with the band was my birthday, and it was in LA playing. I think we played right. Oh yeah, we were out with Stone Temple Pilots, who I love,
yeah,
and in the middle of a song, Ed had the crowd sing me happy birthday for a second. And one of those things that was like, I felt welcome to the band.
yeah,
And it was just a moment being, birthdays make you introspective a little bit and reflective. And that was definitely a moment for me a night that stuck out. And I met Steve Ferroni. Do you know who that is? Steve
yeah,
Ferroni. Steve Ferroni is the drummer most well known for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
right.
Before that, he was in Average White Band and drummer for Shaka Khan in the '60s.
Who was he playing with?
He was there to sit in with Stone Temple Pilots because he's good friends with the
Oh, really?
DeLeo brothers. Yeah.
Sweet. Oh, that's awesome.
He's good friends with the brothers and he lives in LA. So I've been seeing him pop up at LA stuff, like and just popping in on people's sets quite a bit
Yeah.
since he hasn't been out on the road with the Heartbreakers.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, man. Cool. So what's next, man? What are you planning another tour? Are you getting in the studio with live? You got anything going
Yeah,
on?
we're actually due to finish recording. So the two songs that you heard that night in Cleveland, the two new ones, the very first thing I did with live before playing a show, we got in the studio for a week and kind of rehearsed the set for about 20 minutes and everybody was like, okay, it feels great. Let's move on and do some actual recording. You sound great, which made me like, no, in my head, I'm like, oh no, let's rehearse more because I had yet to play a show with them. But we did some recordings in those sessions in Austin, Texas, and we're set to finish all that stuff up for a full album of new stuff. I think before we finish that stuff up in November-ish, we're getting together to put together I don't want to call it a greatest hits, but it's the live hits chronologically with an orchestra,
Oh,
with a
wow.
symphonic orchestra behind a guitar-driven band. You know,
Wow. That's great.
um, which I'm excited about because it'll be cool to kind of reimagine those songs, and
Yeah.
you know,
That'll be different.
it's a
That'll be
it's a
fun.
little nerve-wracking for me to even touch that stuff though, because it's
Yeah.
I know how I am as a fan, and like you're like you hear about something like that, and you're like,
I'm excited
um,
about that. That sounds great. That's going to be really cool. I'm
but
excited
yeah,
to hear you play on those songs. I'm excited to hear some new music with you on it as well. That's great.
yeah, we got that stuff before the end of the year, and we'll be back on the road, and we start a winter tour in February in Canada, and then we'll be doing some international stuff next year.
That's great, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I hope to see you pass through Ohio again sometime. And
Yeah, I'm sure
yeah,
we'll be there. Hey, this is Johnny Radelat, drummer for the band Live, and my ETA is being the most me I could be and letting go of the guardrails for 2026.
There's something about this light that makes your hair melt into blades of grass. All I want in the world is my blue radio.